Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the Golden Stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
That's right. Welcome to Sovryn Tech. Of course, the show that's all about science and technology and how it can set you free. And, I've got a guest today. Of course, I'm being joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Always a pleasure.
Hello. I love to tag team interviews with you.
Absolutely. And, I've got a guest this week that I'm really, really excited about, because talk about technologies, I think, that can set people free. Now, a lot of people, a lot of my listeners may know this. I've been accepting something called ProtoShares or BITShares PTS for months. And I've been telling people, hey, you might want to get excited about this because this is a really, really game-changing idea. And so I'm really, really happy to be joined today by the Director of Marketing for Invictus Innovations, who are behind BITShares. And also, he is also the Chief Brand Evangelist. I love that. And it's Brian Page. Brian, glad to have you with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I've been wanting something like this for quite a while, but I know some really exciting things are coming up for BITShares very, very soon. So I think it's pretty timely. And of course, recently, Bitcoin has been on a little bit of a malfunctioning U-boat ride here. And, to see some of these altcoins still holding up, their value, not to say that I think BITShares is a whole lot more than an altcoin. That's pretty unfair to call it. But, to see it, getting its value going really up is impressive. And so I think a lot of people would just really like to know, what are BITShares, Brian?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. And I basically, the reason I was brought aboard here with Invictus and BITShares is to kind of get the concept out there and explain to people the simplicity of what it is. And
the simplicity, that sounds great, because to me, I see BITShares and it seems a little bit complicated. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the easy version.
It's important to bring up that Bitcoin, I think, is not a complex idea, but when you've never heard of something like it, people thought it was a really complex idea, and they still do, in fact, which is probably why something so revolutionary just hasn't caught on more. So this is exciting. Yeah, absolutely. I love to hear that it's a simple idea, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me tell you real quick that I don't come from a tech background. So when I first came into Bitcoin and this whole realm, I was coming from the perspective of a layperson, a business person, but certainly not someone from this industry. So when I met Daniel Larimer and the team, and just kind of mixing with who's who in this realm, I had to learn a lot myself. And one of the things that I found very difficult was to translate what this is to just the average everyday person. And I think that I've basically been good at kind of communicating the message of what BITShares is and how what we believe it's very revolutionary. And to simplify it, I'll give you the real quick spiel. Basically, what we're attempting to do is to do for business what Bitcoin does for money. So we essentially, what BITShares are is nothing more than digital shares, blockchain-based shares of businesses. And
okay, so this is kind of like, how would that relate to a stock market? It's the same thing. You have shares in a market.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at Bitcoin and what it does, the revolution of Bitcoin, we believe, is not so much Bitcoin itself, but the invention of the blockchain and the idea of open transactions, incorruptibility, trustless systems. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking the same technology behind Bitcoin and applying it to be able to issue shares in any kind of business. So we are in the process of building many different kinds of companies and businesses, but we also are inviting entrepreneurs to use our software, our free open source software, to also launch their own businesses in much the way that altcoins are now being launched, to either replicate Bitcoin or come out with their own improved versions or slightly different versions of the Bitcoin concept.
Now, when you trade as stocks or you buy stock in a company, that's kind of a centralized process. You're going to the New York Stock Exchange or whatever, and you're buying it, and there's only really one place you can do that. But BITShares has a decentralized feature, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It operates on its own blockchain, very similar to the way Bitcoin works.
And I think to some degree, actually having it being open source sort of decentralizes it by default, and it opens it up for the security that's what people are looking for when they want something decentralized, is security. And if this is open source, which you said, Brian, I think that kind of solves that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you may have heard of the term DAC, which stands for Decentralized Autonomous Company or Corporation. Some people call them Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. The concept was first introduced to the industry by Daniel Larimer, our CEO and founder, last summer. And he wrote a white paper on that along with Stan Larimer, and kind of came up with this idea that you could have companies that are completely decentralized, exist only, I guess, in the cloud, you could say, or on a blockchain, and they can be fully autonomous, which means they can operate according to the code that they're written in to go out and produce profits. And that's one thing that Bitcoin does not do. For example, Bitcoin operates as a currency, but there is no profit potential in Bitcoin other than holding it and hoping that it goes up in value. And what we're doing is we're taking the idea of the basic rule of economics and business, which is that you have to produce profit to survive, and we combine that with blockchain technology. So essentially, we could create these almost fully autonomous or fully autonomous businesses where you can issue shares in them for all kinds of industries, and kind of recreate what the New York Stock Exchange is doing. So we're kind of a combination between what the New York Stock Exchange does and what the App Store does with Apple. So we're going to build the ultimate app store for entrepreneurs, I guess you could say.
Right. Well, that's fascinating. So why would somebody want to create or invest in a decentralized company? What are some of the problems with centralized companies that this solves?
Well, you look at a traditional business. We like to compare ourselves to traditional businesses rather than Bitcoin itself. If you compare it to traditional business, most businesses have a location that they operate out of. They have generally employees that run that business almost entirely. A lot of costs that are associated with that business that don't need to be there if you have an autonomous business that operates on a blockchain. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating a more efficient way for, now this doesn't work with all businesses, but for the businesses that it does work with, the industries it does work with, and I can give you specific examples of that. But the businesses that would work with, you can put them on a blockchain, and all those profits, instead of going to the shareholders or the individual owners of that company, they go to the people who hold BitShares. So BitShares is the concept, but there's many different kinds of businesses that will be built on the BitShares technology. So I'll give you one example of an industry. For example, let's just take the lottery business, which right now is operated usually by the state, and various states operate a lottery. But let's just take a lottery and say we wanted to recreate that in a decentralized, autonomous way. You could actually create a company that is in the lottery business that would issue tickets on a blockchain. You could buy your tickets. Anyone could buy the tickets. And the fees from those tickets would go to anyone who owns shares in that business. So let's imagine that this lottery company could raise $100 million, for example. Could be any number, but let's say it's $100 million. 50 million of that goes to those who own the business, anybody who owns shares in that business. The other 50 million goes to a lucky winner or winners that is chosen completely by the program. In other words, it's not centralized, so it has no ability to be influenced or corrupted. So it chooses fairly a winner, and that business is a profitable business from day one, immediately, with almost no overhead, no employees. That's just one example. There's many different examples. We can do this in the insurance industry. We can do it for voting. We can completely revolutionize the way voting works, which is a closed system. It's not an open source system. For example, we don't know what really happens in our voting. If you want to ask for the results of any voting in government,
good luck.
or otherwise, we don't expect the governments to take on this technology, but it certainly can be used for corporate voting, anything like that. So imagine a voting company where your vote is recorded on a blockchain. So you can see your vote. You can see it in real time. Of course, you still have privacy because it's not your name on the recorded. It's the actual number that you're issued, just like a Bitcoin address. And instead of polling, you would no longer need polling because you would have up-to-the-date results immediately on where people are voting. And you could have a central, I hate to say use central authority, but you could have an authority that issues permission for people to vote on that blockchain. But the actual act of voting would be decentralized. It would be free of corruption, to be trustless, all the wonderful qualities of Bitcoin, but applied to a specific business. So that you can do this on and on and on and on. Ticket sales, we can revolutionize the way tickets are sold. We can revolutionize the way auctions are held. So imagine eBay on a blockchain. It's possible. We're building it. We can revolutionize the music industry. Imagine you can vote on a particular song that you like, and you can actually invest in that song. So that's the very next song that's played on the radio or on the actual station. And so you can make money by promoting particular songs. You can do that on a blockchain as well. So essentially what we're doing is we're just trying to take the technology of Bitcoin and apply it to business where it's profitable.
And so there's no real human involved per se, because in this case, you can't corrupt a human, because humans, could be corruptible. They could skew numbers, and this just doesn't allow for anything like that.
Well, essentially what it is since it's open source, you can create this code, you can create the program, and then allow somebody to release it just like they release an altcoin or Bitcoin, and it's going to operate according to whatever the rules of that program are. So let me go back to the broader strokes. Imagine buying, selling, and trading shares as easily as sending email, where transactions occur instantly anywhere in the world from any person to another person completely privately, just like Bitcoin, except now you're trading shares.
Okay.
So imagine that. So imagine if you're an entrepreneur and you want to launch your own business and you want to raise capital for that business, you could actually come up with your own shares based on the BitShares platform and actually do your own crowdfunding. And actually, we did that recently. We issued something called AGS, which used to be known as Angel Shares. And to this date, it represents the largest crowdfunding in cryptocurrency that I know of to date. And we've raised millions of dollars just doing that, issuing our own angel shares in the concept behind what we're doing. So we're using the same technology that we're promoting other people to use to actually build our own businesses.
So it sounds a lot like you're really just trying to give people genuine choice and transparency in what they're doing. I mean, is that fair?
Essentially, yes. Essentially, the largest benefit is it cuts out the middlemen. Okay, so right now we don't like to call ourselves stocks because we're not legally stocks, but we are shares of businesses. So if you look at the way it works today, you have brokers, you have agents, you have central exchanges, you have many different rules that you kind of have to hop through in order to be able to be listed on those exchanges. It's not open to small businesses, for example. Micro businesses are not allowed to do that, to be on the New York Stock Exchange, for example.
It's not open to micro investors either.
It's not private like Bitcoin is. There's the fees involved. So even imagine, I don't want to name any names, but imagine these online brokerages where you pay a fee every time you buy or sell. Well, the fees are nearly non-existent, and the fees that are charged they're so small, like Bitcoin. Those fees go to anybody who holds shares in that particular share or in the concept in general. So in other words, the only way that we make money as a company, as an organization, is by actually owning shares in all the businesses that we're creating and all the businesses that other people are creating on our platform.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Brian. I just want to go back to the example that you brought up a few minutes ago about the lottery. Now, I thought that was a great example because, A, it illustrates the principle of corruptibility. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, if you know the history of the lottery, there's some great documentaries out there about it, but it is incredibly corrupt. It used to be basically run by organized crime, and then it got taken over by governments, which weren't much better. And they're constantly promising people, oh, yeah, it's going to help the kids in the schools, but it really just goes into the general coffers of the state. And of course, there's not really a way to transparently prove it's not provably fair, like, for instance, something like an online game played with Bitcoin might be.
Yeah.
So there's that principle in there, but there's also the idea that, if somebody tried to create a centralized company in the US, at least, that was running a lottery, unless they jump through a lot of hoops and comply with a lot of laws and rules, which will probably interfere with what they're actually trying to do, they're not going to be allowed to do that by the local gangs. I mean, governments that are running running the place. So having a decentralized company, there is not a person to prosecute or to apply pressure to. Is that essentially right? Once the code is in the wild, there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Absolutely. Look at Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who he is. Bitcoin was launched by him. As far as we know, he has no control over what it's become. And the same thing with what we're doing. The software is free. Someone else can launch it. It won't even be us launching the initial chains. So people can come along and use that software to launch their own businesses and In this example, you could launch a lottery business from another country, another place in the world. But that's really not even the most exciting thing. What we're working on right now, the very first business that's about to be launched that's based on this technology is called BITShares X. X stands for exchange, bank and exchange. And what it represents, something you'll probably find very exciting, is the first decentralized bank and exchange ever. And what we're going to do is in the next few days, on the 28th, we actually launch the test chain of it. And what this allows you to do, imagine you started this conversation with what happened with Mt. Gox. And people are talking about, oh my gosh, it's the end of Bitcoin and the price has dropped and it's too volatile. And even my friends are like, how can I possibly use Bitcoin when it jumps and drops, 30% in value in a few days? I mean, how could you buy your groceries with that? And it's a good point. Now imagine something that has all the properties of Bitcoin with the price stability of the US dollar. And actually, that's something that we're creating right now. It's called BitUSD. So it's essentially just a derivative on the US dollar. It's worth only what the marketplace decides that it's worth. But what it's going to track is the price of the US dollar and not the price of Bitcoin. But it operates the same way as Bitcoin. And in fact, you could issue bit euros, bit yen, I mean, any currency that you want to, even bit gold or bit silver.
So this is essentially a blockchain through BitShares that will attach to the US dollar and allow you to use that as maybe a currency, or is it just to...
Yes, you could use it as a currency if you wanted to, but it doesn't track the US dollar. It tracks any asset class that someone wants to issue shares in. So you could even do bit gasoline. So we're going to do that with BitShares X. So you could trade basically anything, but in a technology that's based on Bitcoin, all the properties of Bitcoin. So we believe that BitUSD will have the stability of the dollar, but be just as usable and tradable as Bitcoin.
So I have a question related to that. Is Invictus the only entity that could issue, for instance, BitUSD or BitGold or BitGasoline, or could anyone issue their own BitUSD, BitGold, etc.?
No, I guess anybody could. Anybody could take our code and fork it and come up with a similar concept, similar idea. But time to market is everything on this, and we're literally days away from launching the test of this, and very soon after have it up and functional and ready to be used. So we welcome anybody to come build on our technology. We certainly do. We have an entire community of people around the world, over 10,000 people around the world that are supporting what we're doing, and that's the money that we've raised through our AGS or Angel Fund is being used to build out these businesses, to build this infrastructure, and not only that, to fund actual businesses. We're actually going to give that money back to people that have great concepts for building BitShares-based businesses. We're going to be doing that this summer at our event in Las Vegas, which I'll be happy to talk about later.
Okay, so essentially you will be, I guess the question I think a lot of people are going to have is, because this is open, anybody can take your code and use it and do their own thing. How exactly do you plan on really profiting from this? I mean, and if you're, if you don't have a direct answer for this right now, because, this is up and coming, that's fine. But, are you trying to pull like a Canonical, where like with Ubuntu, the Linux distro, where they make money off of tech support? Or are you just going to make, a percentage off of transactions? How's that going to go?
Well, every business that has launched on our program, our software, the aim is to be a for-profit business. And those profits that are earned are distributed as dividends. The best example I can give you is dividends. So you own a stock, a traditional stock, you get dividends paid to you. Not all stocks do, but a lot of stocks pay you dividends every month or every quarter or every day. So if you own these shares in these various businesses, you will get dividends paid to you. And in an example of BitShares X, there's two types of people that would want to be a part of this bank and exchange. The first type is people that want to deposit their Bitcoin, for example, and earn interest on it. We're actually going to be able to lend money into existence just like a bank does today. We charge interest. That interest goes to the people who have money in that particular bank and exchange. And it's all collateralized by stock in the bank. So we're fully collateralized, unlike banks today that they use what they call fractional reserve lending. If you have $1 million in a normal bank, they lend $10 million out. So they're actually leveraged way out. We're actually going to only lend 50% of our reserve ratio. So whatever the assets are of the bank, we lend 50% of that. So that's the first thing. First person will be the customer. Somebody who has Bitcoin says, yeah, I want to earn interest on my Bitcoin. I want to be able to trade it for other types of assets like BitUSD. The second person will be somebody that wants to invest into the bank, own shares in the bank. So imagine the bank that you have now. I won't name any names, but let's just, bank, whatever the bank is that you currently use. You don't earn any money on that bank when you put money in that bank. You might earn very, very little interest on a savings account. And unless you own stock in that bank, you don't get any of the profits. And most banks don't pay any dividends. So you're going to be able to earn interest on your money. And on top of that, be able to own ownership in the bank and make money off the profits of the bank. So there's two different ways to get involved.
So why would somebody who is interested in Bitcoin and decentralized technologies want to use a bank? I mean, that's kind of a tricky question, but I think a lot of people are interested in Bitcoin because they're very skeptical of banks and they want to obsolete banks and be their own bank.
Well, the only reason we use the word bank, we're not really a bank. The only way we can use the reason we use the word bank is to communicate the idea of what it is. So like right now, holding Bitcoin, there is no way I know of to make money just holding Bitcoin other than speculation. You hold it and you wait for it to go up in value, and you hope it continues to go up in value. What we're allowing is people to actually trade upon the value of Bitcoin or really any crypto asset out there. So
the bank function is kind of integrated with the decentralized exchange.
Yes, and it is decentralized. So you got to understand that it's not something that you're depositing money with BitShares or with Invictus. It's decentralized to the point where we're not holding that. It's inside the business. It's inside the decentralized autonomous company per se. So the same way, it doesn't involve any trust. Let's put it that way. The same way Bitcoin is trustless, it's a trustless system. This will be the same exact thing. It's decentralized, trustless businesses.
And you would have these would be instantaneous transfers that you would do within, to keep the use of the word bank. And I think that alone actually kind of takes it away from the popular idea of a bank because, certainly to have something instantaneous, that's so far and away from what people are used to.
Yeah.
So imagine you have a quote account, but that account, no one can have unauthorized access to it. It's absolutely encrypted, just like Bitcoin is. Only you control your BitShares or your BitShares based shares. They're stored in a digital wallet. You have the keys to this wallet. And you can store them offline in a safe place or like cold storage in an actual safe if you want to, the same way you can with Bitcoin. They're completely anonymous. There's privacy of transactions. It's all, like I said, all the benefits of Bitcoin, but it's not actually based on the Bitcoin blockchain, which we believe is kind of slow and bloated right now, but it's actually based on its own blockchain. But like I said, everything about it is open. It's open source. You can see exactly what's there. And like I said, people are going to be launching all kinds of businesses. These are just the ones that we're currently working on.
So if somebody wanted to launch a DAO or a business through the Invictus platform, how would they go about doing that?
Okay. Well, we're very early in the building stages right now. You got to understand the history of where we've come from. November 5th was the very first time we introduced something to the marketplace, and that was called Proto Shares at the time. Right now it's called PTS because somebody owns Proto Share. So it's now called Shares PTS. But Proto Shares essentially was the very first time anyone had ever issued a crypto share. And everybody thought it was an altcoin because it looked like it was like all the other altcoins. In fact, we're in the top 10, market cap. You can find us traded on several exchanges. But it wasn't. It was actually a share. And what that was issued was a prototype to see if this concept would work. So essentially, what we're doing now is we're allowing people to come and use the same software, but that's going to be after we launch these first few businesses of our own. So we figured the easiest way to do that would be get all the people in one place where they can learn how to do this, and that's going to be our event in Las Vegas, and it's called Beyond Bitcoin. It's going to be in Las Vegas, July 18th to the 20th. And what we encourage people to do is to bring entrepreneurs together with developers, to get together with venture capitalists, all to come together in one location. And we're actually going to do a Shark Tank style competition where people can come to the front of the room, pitch their idea in front of a panel of experts. And if they like your idea, you can create this right there at that event. And then we already have people kind of lined up, ready to build businesses right now. But honestly, most of the time that we have in the developers and programmers that we have are focused on getting our own businesses launched to kind of do proof of concept.
Sure. One thing that intrigues me is that, I know a lot of people say, look, we can just do all this stuff with Bitcoin. Okay, all these ideas, we can just implement them in Bitcoin. And it's like, okay, well then can we start doing them? They're like, no, we can't do it yet. We got to wait. And it's like, well, why wait? Why not just come out with something else, that can do it right now?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that excites me about altcoins, or these entirely really new ideas. Something I like to call like crypto equity,
Yep.
or crypto shares. I like that too. And that's what I say. Why bother waiting? The whole point of all this stuff, of Bitcoin, of all these cryptocurrencies, all this business, is for instantaneous, to make our transactions, our business as easy as using email.
Absolutely.
And so why wait? I love Bitcoin. Make no mistake, I don't want anybody to confuse that. I'm a huge fan.
Oh no,
okay.
I want to make that clear as well, because I got an interview with a mainstream media source this week, and the first thing he started off was, okay, tell me how you're going to replace Bitcoin and why you're better than Bitcoin. I said, no, you don't understand. We've raised the majority of our money that we've raised as a company is in Bitcoin. The last thing we want to see is a Bitcoin go anywhere or to try to replace Bitcoin. We're simply taking the idea and saying, you know what, Bitcoin, if you look at it as one application of the technology, that's really what it is. It operates in one way. It's currency. It's not an official currency, but it operates as currency or as money, and that's how people are using it. But there's 100 other uses for this technology, and that's why our slogan is reimagine everything, because we really believe that not every business, of course, I don't think you're going to be doing dog grooming on a DAC anytime soon. You could, I guess, but there's only certain businesses that require trust and transactions that are good for this kind of technology. But we're trying to reimagine how you can use the blockchain for all these other types of industries, because we really believe that the blockchain is the third major technological revolution after the introduction of the personal computer, first in the 70s, and then later on the introduction of the modern internet, which would be like the early 90s. So we think that the decentralization, if you look at the internet, the story of the internet is simply, it was a decentralization of information. That's what the internet is. Before the internet existed, you had to go to a centralized source like a library or an encyclopedia or an expert and find your information. But now all this information exists. It's not really under the control of any particular central place. And it's usable anywhere in the world by anybody, and anybody can add to it. So that's the first decentralization revolution, was the internet. But then this one is basically the decentralization of everything else, and Bitcoin's just the beginning. So we look at it like this: if you look back to the early '90s, and the first websites were being launched, the first I'd say 1991, 92, 93, the very first websites were coming out. People were like ooh and ah and looking at all these cool websites. But what the revolution was not the website; it was the internet itself, the network. That was the revolution. And so we believe that Bitcoin is like one of those amazing first websites. But there were in 1990, early 90s, nobody saw that there was Google was around the corner, or Facebook, or eBay, or Amazon.
Oh yeah,
it was right around the corner. And so we believe the reason I found this company is because I was looking for the next big thing. I was trying to say, what's the next huge innovation after Bitcoin? And I believe this is it.
Yeah, I did the same. That's really how I came across, BitShares and Victus, is, what exactly is that next one? Because like I said, Bitcoin, again, it's going to be around, I think, for a good long time.
Yeah.
But there's so much more that can be done, and a lot of people say, well, look, we only want one, we only have one internet. Why don't we just stick with Bitcoin? And it's like, well, ever since the Edward Snowden revelations, you still want one internet? I'd like a few, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Bitcoin is a specific use of that, though,
Sure.
But what's behind Bitcoin? It's this idea of open transactions. It's this idea of no trust needed, of open ledgers. Like I was talking to Daniel Larimer, and I said, Dan, if this is so simple in your mind, this idea of a decentralized exchange or bank, why is nobody doing it? And he looked at me and he's like, because nobody knows how to do it. Nobody knows how to build it.
Sure.
But he does, and we're there. We're very close to actually being able to launch this. So the general answer is that most people don't know how to build these things. There are some great companies out there doing very innovative things, and I believe there's space in this industry for all kinds of huge companies that will come down the line. And we really think this is like the early .com era. Unfortunately, in the .com era, there were a lot of booms and busts. There were a lot of companies that were valued for high multiples that had no earnings. So
Right.
So we pride ourselves on, Daniel says we pride ourselves on being computer nerds and economists. I wouldn't put myself in the first category, but I definitely can support the second category. And that's the first rule of business is to make a profit. And that ensures that everyone who's involved has a self-interest, to get involved, because they want to that's how the economy works.
I'm a big believer in self-interest. I think it drives everything, whether people realize it or not. I do want to ask, I have this question.
Sure.
Do you feel that as an employee at Invictus, that, everybody you work with, shares the same values that you're describing?
First of all, I'd like to say I don't really consider myself an employee of Invictus or BitShares. What we're doing is we're actually decentralized, even in our hierarchy and in our organization. And that's one of the things that Daniel made very clear to me. He's like, I don't want to be a Google. I don't want to have 80 offices around the world and 2,000 employees. I want to be decentralized. I believe in decentralization so much that I want you to go out, and you're the marketing guy. You go build your own marketing firm, and you can support what we're doing and what every other person that's coming is doing. Essentially, I'm building the first marketing firm for decentralized businesses. So if you have come along and you're like, I got this great idea, I can use the software to build it for this specific industry that I know I'm an expert on, you can come to me and I can market for you. But my business is completely decentralized. It's completely separate from that. And that's kind of the way we're structuring our business right now, so that everybody is decentralized even amongst ourselves. But to answer your question, yeah, we all, we come from slightly varying different political backgrounds and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But we're all business people, and I would say that I'm definitely not a tech person. I would never claim to be, but I do understand an opportunity when I see it. And I come from a sales and marketing background, particularly in real estate. And I got in real estate early on before the big bubble happened, and told everybody that there was going to be a big, huge movement into real estate, and of course it happened, and the money moved on. And I believe this is the next big thing. This is really the next huge opportunity. Will be in decentralization and businesses that support it.
Do you ever worry that Invictus could be a target in some way? Because what Invictus is doing is a little bit Satoshi-like, let's say, but the identities of the people involved are public. Yeah. So how do you address that?
Yeah, well, that's something we talk about every day. We do have legal counsel. We discuss this with them about how to go about doing this. It's an unusual place to be in historically, because the Federal Reserve hasn't really put their foot down on Bitcoin. I think personally the only reason they haven't is because to say don't do it would be a ringing endorsement to go do it. So
right, yeah.
I think that's why they're not. But I think there will be a time, when all this will come into question. So we're looking at the other places around the world that we might want to set up shop and that kind of thing. But quite frankly, once this is released and once this works, we don't even need to be around. This isn't going to be on our server. This isn't going to be under our control. So if it, just like Satoshi disappeared, if Invictus disappears in a few years, or not so much disappears, but that infrastructure, that community has been built, and now everybody's out there building their own businesses on this idea, then it doesn't really matter what we do. And that's kind of the idea. We're not looking to be the center of all this. We're simply looking to be the innovators and introduce it like Satoshi did with Bitcoin. And actually, I should also note that Daniel Larimer was closely involved with Satoshi early on in communicating with him when he was first creating and working with Bitcoin, and had some interesting critiques to give him. And you can find all this in the records and stuff. But it's really interesting. He's been involved since the very, very beginning, and it's definitely one.
I want to bring up Dan a little bit.
Sure.
I personally, myself in dealing with, in the tech world and everything, I know there's this old phrase that's like, follow the money. And I never believed that. I didn't really, to some degree, that's a useful phrase, but I think it's actually follow the attitude. If you really want to look into something. And I know Dan is, like you say, an incredibly intelligent guy. He's been in this for a while. And he's also, he considers himself an Austrian economist. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for the right attitude, because I mention Google all the time. Okay, people love Google. Look, you got to understand, Larry Page is no libertarian. He is not interested, in your rights. He's not interested in any of that stuff. Yeah. As to where if you have a guy like Dan Larimer, who's a straight up, again, Austrian economist, yeah, that's someone I want to talk to. And that I want to deal with.
He says publicly he wants all human interactions to be on a voluntary basis, and I really respect that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's exciting.
He believes in protecting, life, liberty, and property. And right now, that's the role of the government, which they may or may not do completely effectively. But if you can do that without the use of the government, and do it, make the government, I guess, obsolete by doing it through these kind of systems, through free markets, and we really believe in free markets. But then it's possible that you can do that with this technology. And Bitcoin is revolutionary because it's the first time anybody ever issued money is separate from a state. It's not issued by a central bank or a central government, but it works, and it works because the users, it has use. It has people trust it. It has it functions, and so it has value because of that. And we believe that these are also going to have value. So essentially, what we're doing is I want to go into this just a little bit, talk about PTS and AGS, because some people are curious what those are. Proto shares were essentially, which is PTS, was our prototype shares, and AGS was our fundraiser, I guess you could say. One is based on proof of work like Bitcoin, and one is proof of stake. But essentially, they do the same exact thing. Each one of those gives you a 10% minimum ownership in every business that we create and every business that's created on our platform. So that's a total of 20% ownership. Now, the rest of the 80% can be allocated however the business owner wants to. But very much in the same way that, a general exchange works or the Apple Store works, you can come in there and developers can build their own build their own app on the platform and profit from it. So we're doing the same thing. So we had to have a way to raise money to be able to build this out, to go hire the developers and hire the team and hire people like me to come in and explain it. And so that's what we're doing with the funds that we have. In addition to that, also supporting these fledgling businesses that need startup capital. So those are the two ways to get involved if you want to get involved in investing in the concept in general. But that's essentially what happens is if you own either of these, PTS or AGS, you're going to get a little tiny fraction of every profit that's made on every future business that's built on this software.
So what's the difference between PTS and AGS?
There really is no difference in how they function. The main difference is what you can do with them. PTS is traded, bought, and sold on many exchanges, just like any altcoin is. And AGS is not liquid right now because it's essentially, we're calling it a donation to the cause. We can't call it an investment legally, so we just call it a donation. So when you donate to AGS, you get angel shares, and those shares operate the same way that the PTS does. So they operate the exact same way. Owning either one will give you a minimum 10% ownership in future businesses that we create and everyone else creates. And for example, the BitShares X, remember I said it was 10% for each of those. BitShares X, we decided to do 50-50. So all the shares of BitShares X, this decentralized bank and exchange, are going to be divided amongst anyone who holds PTS and anyone who owns AGS 50-50. So
that's an incentive to really get people into it, right?
Absolutely. So are we taking any? We're not taking any for ourselves, which I guess an equivalent would be like pre-mining. We're taking none for ourselves unless we buy into it ourselves. So essentially, we're doing 50-50. Anybody can do any amount they want to, down to 20%, but we're doing 50-50 because we just believe that we're going to give the value back out to the users of the system. So, but if you were to come along and say, "Hey, Brian, I'm in the insurance business. I want to build a decentralized insurance business," I'd be like, "Great, you can use our software to do it. It's free open source software. But if you want to be supported by the community and all the investors that are already out there, you need to allocate 20% of your shares to these two holders, these two early investors." And
right.
So essentially, think of it like this. People are really confused by all this, and I'll just clarify. I'll make it as simple as possible. Think of Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is a holding company. Imagine in the 1960s, you bought shares in the Berkshire Hathaway, and then Warren Buffett started going and buying up little companies here and there and here and there and continue to buy them over the decades. Today, a single share in Berkshire Hathaway is worth over $150,000.
Right.
So, we don't know if that's going to happen for us. I'm not promising that will happen. There will be duds. There will be companies that don't work. There'll be some that work, and then there'll be some that'll be raging, knock it out of the park successes. But the advantage is you get to have a little ownership in all of those if you're a part of the system.
And how does that work? Like if somebody has PTS or AGS, how do they then receive ownership in DAOs that come out later?
Absolutely. Well, it happens automatically. Everything's recorded on open transactions. It's recorded on the blockchain. So all the donations are there for everyone to see. For example, you can go to agsexplorer.com right now and you can see where the donations are coming from. We accept Bitcoin as well, but you can see where all the donations, all the addresses, and the shares will be divided proportionally among everybody who donates each day. So every day there's 10,000 shares. They're auctioned off, and we don't set the price. The price is set by whatever the marketplace decides they're worth. So every day for about 7 months, we're going to issue 2 million of these, just like we have 2 million PTS that will eventually be available. That's the supply. And it'll all be recorded every time a new DAC is launched. You'll automatically get shares in these new businesses. And then eventually we have people from exchanges that have already called us and said, we're ready to build the exchange. As soon as these shares are all ready to go, we're going to build an exchange. And, right now, if you go to Market Cap, what is that website? It's called Coin Market Cap, for example. You go there and there's like all these altcoins. Well, imagine a day in the near future where you go to a website that's nothing but shares. It's nothing but BitShares. And so that's what the day we're envisioning, where there'll be many, many different kinds of companies, and all these shares will be tradable at that time. But right now, we're just in the early phase of building out the software, building out the system, all that kind of thing. We're basically 3 months old right now.
And so with PTS, they are proof of work, so people could mine them. But with AGS, they're proof of stake, so the only way to get them is to participate in the fundraiser. Is that right?
Absolutely. PTS is mined just like Bitcoin. And it will be mined for some time. And I think there's, probably 1.5 million, something like that, maybe a little less in existence. AGS, there's been 10,000 issued every day since January 1st. It'll end right about the time we have our event in Las Vegas. And AGS is not liquid right now, but will be at that time, or I would think shortly after that. And essentially you can, they trade at different, essentially different quote prices, but you can invest either way.
So if you have AGS, are you going to be able to basically decide which potential DAOs at the conference get funded? Or are you going to have a vote or a say in that?
Yeah, well, Daniel Larimer is going to be heading up the panel. We'll have several other people on that panel as well. We're currently working on securing some really interesting speakers. These are speakers you're not going to see in the Bitcoin realm at all. These are people that haven't yet spoken at the round of conferences that are going on right now. So we'll have the panel of experts, and then we kind of decide which ones make the most sense, and then help them get funded, get the developers they need, everything they need to kind of get off the ground. Because I've had people contact me and say, "Hey, Brian, I'm a business person, but I don't know the first thing about how this all works." And I'm like, "Well, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're going to build the tools that you need to go be able to do that." And then there's developers that say, "I do understand what you're doing. Can I just get the code and create my own thing?" So.
But I'm wondering, is the process of deciding which DAOs in this initial seed round at the conference get funded, is that process going to be determined by experts in sort of more of a centralized process, or is that going to be determined by the investors or the crowdfunders, which is a little more decentralized?
Well, there's several methods we could go. We have looked at both options. That's still in progress as far as I'm planning the event. I'm in charge of putting together the structure of the event, but the content is actually up to Daniel and the team. So that's still in the works. But essentially, the whole reason we issued AGS was because the PTS, the money wasn't coming to us. They were being traded and bought and sold, just like, there was no pre-mine. So we didn't have money to build our company. Daniel, he told me, this is kind of funny. Daniel went out and bought like 20, computers, regular, desktop computers to mine proto shares. And by the time they got to his house, they were so slow that they were not worth plugging up. So he has all these never used desktop computers, on his property. That I was like, what are all these? And he's like, well, I tried to mine proto shares, and I just, I didn't, because it wasn't worth it. So early on, the only way he got his proto shares was to be able to buy them himself. So after that went on for a little while, he thought, well, wait a second, how are we going to get the money to actually, I know how to build this, but I need to hire developers all over the world and programmers. And I need somebody that can come in and market this and all that kind of thing. So we had to issue AGS so that we had the capital to be able to do this. So it's the community saying, we trust you, we believe in what you're doing, we want to be a part of this. And so all that money, it's all open. Like every expense that we have is on an open ledger. You can see exactly where we spend our money as a company. There's nothing hidden. You can see where all the money comes from, all the donations come from. And every day these shares are being issued. People are getting a stake in all of those future businesses that come out.
Okay, here's another question. I think a lot of people are familiar with some of the other organizations, or I don't want to call them companies, but other organizations that are doing kind of similar things to Invictus, such as, Ethereum and Mastercoin and even Next and some of the other there's decentralized exchanges on some other altcoins. How is, Invictus different from them? What's unique about Invictus compared to them?
Absolutely. Well, first I should clarify one thing. We're not going to be known as Invictus very much longer. Invictus is simply the parent company, but the idea, the concept is BITShares. BITShares. We have a brand new website that'll be launched March 21st. It's going to be an absolutely, completely interactive website with libraries of information, everything that you would possibly need, clearly communicating the message of BITShares and all that kind of thing, which our current site is just kind of a placeholder. So BITShares is what we want to be known as. But I don't want to talk negatively at all about what other people are doing in the space. There's a lot of great innovators, including Ethereum and including Mastercoin, and what they're doing is all a very next level. In fact, we have included them and invited them all to be a part of our event in Las Vegas. That's why we didn't call the event, the BitShares Symposium or the BitShares Summit. We're calling it Beyond Bitcoin. We want to talk to innovators and leaders that are thinking of what's next in this technology. What's the next use of it? And so,
right. And I think, like you said, Brian, I mean, you had mentioned earlier that you think there's plenty of room.
There is plenty of
a lot of different.
It's absolutely. I mean, like I said, early '90s and the internet's being born, and everybody's concerned about who's going to have the best website. It's just or a business. Now, to be fair, what these other companies or organizations are doing is not at all really what we're doing. They're doing completely different things. And I won't go too much into how those might be positive or negative. They're all innovating, but what we're doing, I know, is we're the leaders in what we do. We're the first to do what we do, and we're providing an absolutely valuable service, a ton of value for businesses that want to come along and use this technology. So we think we have a saying around our company, bigger than Bitcoin, and we really believe that we could be bigger than Bitcoin in the near future because Bitcoin is a $7 to $12 billion market cap, something like that, but it serves one function. And what we're going to do is be able to apply this technology. If we just applied it to one industry like banking or insurance or an industry like that, you're talking humongous, huge industries. The amount of money that floats around in the banking industry, for example. And granted, Bitcoin's got a lot of that, but we're hoping to solve some of the weaknesses of Bitcoin, like the price stability of the dollar, that kind of thing. So we want to partner with these other organizations and companies, and we have actually ties to some of them, and we know that we know them, they know us well, and we want to encourage them to come up to be a part of what we're doing at our event this summer as well. So I'm thrilled. I want to see lots of Googles and Amazons and eBays coming out of this space, and I believe that there are going to be several mega opportunities coming out, and we're just one of them.
Now, after the Beyond Bitcoin conference, are there going to be other opportunities for people to create DAOs?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website will be the source for that. So you're going to go to BITShares.org. The reason it's called an org is because it's going to be an organization of decentralized companies. And you're going to be able to go there, and that's where you'll get the tools you need, the source code you need to be able to build your own DAC. So I don't have a time frame when that's going to happen, but the whole point of Vegas is to get all these great minds in one spot, and maybe they have different ideas on how to actually do that. But there hasn't been a conference like that. Most of these conferences, they do the same thing. They talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin related services and what it means. And who knows, 10 years from now, there might be something that's superior to Bitcoin that does exactly what Bitcoin does. We don't know what's going to happen next. So we want to look beyond Bitcoin at where the technology can go next, realizing that Bitcoin has opened the door to this whole new world, and we're grateful for that. We want to use Bitcoin as long as we can, and we think it's absolutely not, essential to our business.
I love it. I am very, very excited about all of this. I mean, like you said, it could work. It might not. But it's such a great new idea. It kind of reminds me of like Steve Jobs' line, it's like nobody needs this. And he says, well, it's because we haven't built it yet. You know what I mean? And I see this to be very, very, very in line with that way of thinking. And I think that's great.
Someone's got to try it for sure.
That's right. And Brian, tell me again, what are the dates for this event?
Yes, it is July 18th through the 20th in Las Vegas at the Paris Resort and Hotel. And we will have the website up on March 21st as well, beyondbitcoin.org. Right now, there's just some basic information there, but everything will be there to sign up, to become a speaker. We're going to have some mainstream people there. I can't name any names, but some people that you probably recognize that are more mainstream authorities, might not be experts in Bitcoin, but certainly experts in their particular industry that are going to come and talk and speak. Now, the thing I want to say about this event that we're going to do differently from anyone else in the industry, we're trying to create the first event that will be three things. It's going to be entertaining, it's going to be content rich, and it's going to be actionable. And a lot of these events that I go to, I love going to them. I meet fascinating people, but it's mostly just a long string of speakers speaking about topics, some of which are talented speakers, some of which are not. And that's and then there's people, doing the trade show thing, which we will have sponsors and that kind of event. But we're going to create an absolutely entertaining event where people can come, be entertained, and kind of have we have some really exciting things kind of planned, Vegas style entertainment that's going to be there. But we're going to have lots of opportunities for networking, so people can actually come together, build teams. We're going to have content rich. We're going to have a lot of great content, and then in addition to that, it's going to be actionable, which means the idea is that people will leave there with the team and the people that they need, and some of the tools they need to be able to go out and start building these decentralized businesses. So that's
sure. So you're going to build your infrastructure right from the event. Yeah, I agree. I don't know any event that really does that. That's amazing.
No event does that, and the last thing we want to do is be dull. We're trying to make it exciting. It's not that our first goal is to entertain, but I want to go somewhere where I'm engaged because it's entertaining. Interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the Shark Tank competition. I can't really call it Shark Tank because there's a show like that, but let's just say that the fish with teeth tank. That competition there. We actually looked at getting actual sharks in a tank on stage, 500-gallon tank. So
I love it.
This is not going to be your dad's seminar. This is going to be different. and so that's the thing. And we're gonna include people that aren't necessarily in this whole realm. We want all the Bitcoin people. We want all the cryptocurrency people to come, but we're going to get people from outside those areas, people that are kind of like yourselves that are into the more broader political realms, people like that want us to talk about what this means to the world, if we actually can implement this and do these changes. So it's going to be a very exciting event. It's not expensive to go to. It's going to be $297 to get a ticket to it. Like I said, tickets will be available March 21st, and then come out and check it out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I promise you it'll be the best event of the year to go to in this industry.
Phenomenal. I think Stephanie and I certainly want to be at this.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh crap, we got to make another trip to Vegas, but this one will be better than the others.
This is entertainment. I love it. Okay, well, excellent, Brian. I really appreciate you taking the time and really explaining a lot of this stuff. And I certainly
feel like this clarified a lot for me.
Yeah, I have a much better grasp of what's going on.
I hope so. I mean, that's part of my job is to translate. Because when I met Daniel, I met him in Las Vegas actually, and I wasn't looking for a job. I just wanted to know what the next big thing was, and everybody kept saying similar things. I kept hearing things about companies like Mastercoin and things, but I kept hearing the same name, Daniel Larimer. Check out Daniel Larimer. So I finally pulled him aside. I said, Daniel, you're obviously very brilliant. Everybody thinks your ideas are brilliant, but your website kind of isn't there, and you don't have any marketing, and I don't understand. I don't even understand what you do. And he's like, I need somebody to be the face of the company. You're hired. That's how I got the job. So, I talked about a lot of things just now, and I want people to just get their brain around that what we're doing is essentially digital shares. That's what we're doing. BitShares is digital shares. We hope to do for business and shares of business what Bitcoin's doing for money. And we invite everybody to come be a part of that and help us build out this great concept.
I love it. What's right now? What's the best URL for people to go to? What's the best web address?
Go to BITShares.org.
Okay.
That right now just is a redirect to our current site, and there's a lot of information on there. But our brand new site will be up March 21st, along with the event site beyondbitcoin.org, and we're going to have all kinds of great content on there and free education, and we have a forum that's got over 10,000 people from around the world. We have one of the largest groups of people in China that are supporting what we're doing. We're going to be in China in the next couple of months. Actually, Beyond Bitcoin is going to go beyond Bitcoin East, beyond Bitcoin West. We're going to go out east to China or maybe Singapore to do it in about a year. So
fantastic.
So go to that site, learn more. Go to our forum, which is BITSharesTalk.org is our forum.
Fantastic. Again, Brian, thank you so much. Stephanie, of course, thank you so much for being on with me.
Yes, thank you, Brian and Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Carpe Lucem.
I'll see you on the next episode of Sovryn Tech.
This has been Sovryn Tech, visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.